What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa. I got Justine here as well. And if you're new here, this is the show that showcases the importance of music and mental health. We invite guests on to share their own story of how music has made a positive impact in their lives, as well as their own mental health journey. Before we get into our wonderful guests, which I know you clicked on, you're excited about, I'm excited to share that. If you just want to help support this little show, all you have to do is leave a positive rating or review on any app you are listening to this right now, any platform. It truly goes a long way, and we appreciate it so much, as well as leave us a follow and subscribe to the show so you don't miss any of these amazing conversations coming up, whether it's about a record or an amazing guest. So you really don't want to miss out, and we truly appreciate the support. Today in the show, I was joined by, of course, we went to one of our favorite places, Pittsburgh, to find some amazing talent. And it was one of those small world connections because my friend Ashley that was on the show, and she works with the Warped Band, Drew, who was on the show from the Warped Band, and their mutual friend Ryan had reached out about coming on the show and getting his band on. The minute I heard them, they immediately reminded me of something that would be on the record label Fueled by Ramen, that Fueled by Ramen era. Whether it was the Hush Sound, the net band 1997, if you're familiar with them, really reminded me of that. So I immediately gravitated and was like, oh, I really want to get them on the show. We talk about everything from their early days of falling in love with music and their own mental health journeys, but we also dive into them playing the kickoff show for Four Chord. So if you're listening to this, Four Chord already happened, but if you were able to catch them, we're going to talk about that and the excitement leading up to that. And also their track that just got released, Light the Fuse. I've been listening to a lot. I think it's really, really great. And again, I love to see a different type of music out there. And again, it just speaks to everything we know about Pittsburgh. I want to thank Ryan, Amy, Alex, and Tommy again for their patience because we had some Zoom difficulties, which are the worst thing that can ever happen. I don't know what's going on, but they were so kind and I appreciate that. A little disclaimer as well. In the beginning, Ryan sounds a little, I don't know if it's like muffled or the right word for it. I think it was his connection because at one point we lost him during, but he came back. And the second half of it, it was a lot better. So I did a lot of editing in it to kind of help that a little bit, but it's just his connection. Sometimes it happens, but Ryan had great things to say. So please listen to what he had to say. Here's my conversation with Ryan, Amy, Alex, and Tommy of Midnight Light. Because it is audio only, if you guys just, so someone recognizes your voice, if you guys just want to introduce yourself, what you do in the band for the listener.
I guess I'll go first. I'm
Yeah.
Tommy. I play guitar.
I'm Alex. I drum.
I'm Amy. I play bass.
And I'm Ryan. I'm a singer.
Awesome. And I mean, something we love to ask each guest, and it would be so interesting. You guys can all just go around, whoever wants to start. But what are those first memories of falling in love with music for you guys? Whether it was maybe a record, a moment, a concert. A lot of people say the car is like the one thing, like when they were younger. So for you guys, whatever it was that made you realize this is bigger than, hey, I just like this song and it was a little deeper.
I'd say, at least for me, the car was one of those first moments. I had memories of when I was a kid and younger and starting to remember certain songs like, oh, hey, I heard that last week or I heard that the other day, and starting to hear it over again and to get that repetition and like, oh, I actually kind of like this. And that grew into playing in concert bands, singing in choir and all that. And yeah, those were definitely the first steps, I would say.
Awesome. A lot of people say, I think it was Dave of the band Roderick was on, and he had said the choir was his first one too,
Mhm.
first experience too, which is really cool that somebody else has that experience.
It's awesome.
Alex and I were in high school chorus together.
Oh,
Ironically, now we don't sing.
I was just gonna say. Hey, I was in the chorus when I was younger, and I couldn't sing at all. So I really, anyone that has anything musical, whether it's singing an instrument, I give so much credit to because I've tried the instrument, I tried the guitar route, just could not figure it out for whatever reason. So kudos to all you guys doing what you guys do in your band.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely had like I was kind of going in a similar direction to Alex's answer when I was thinking about this one, and it was not the first time I ever really thought about music making an impact, but I would say playing an instrument in like middle school, and eventually I started on saxophone and then eventually moved to guitar when I was like 10 or 11 years old, and that was yeah, I knew pretty quickly, like, yeah, this is a thing I want to do and like be serious about.
See, it's so cool, like all those moments that get you to where you are now. So that's so awesome. And what about you, Amy?
Yeah, so I was just gonna chime in, I guess two part from, both what Tommy and Brewer were saying is that the first time I remember being really excited about music, it's kind of two parts. So the first part is my chorus teacher was also my best friend's dad, and he's like one of the best guitar players I know. So just his musical influence, we'd spend, not just time at school, but time at, his house and his basement with his hundreds of guitars and, a lot of great memories there. And then for pop punk specifically, I remember that I was 11 and one of my very first CDs was the No Pads, No Helmets, Just Balls by Simple Plan. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember going on a family road trip to Myrtle Beach, and my parents were so angry because they were sick of just hearing those same 11-ish songs on repeat for 10 hours there and back. So definitely fell in love with that album early on.
Oh, and it's such a good one. I think like sometimes it gets lost in that shuffle for some people when they think about those, I guess what they say, oh, the elder emos now, when they look back and at that. But that one was such an iconic record. I know in my life too. And I remember meeting Simple Plan at like a Warp Tour. They were the kindest people ever too. So that helped it too.
That's so awesome.
Oh gosh, big heart for Simple Plan. If I can get to When We Were Young, I will definitely catch that record played, hopefully. But Ryan, what about you?
For me, it wasn't so much an instrument. For me, it was In Sync. And I
Oh,
remember listening to In Sync when I was about 4 or 5 years old, hearing tearing up my heart, like hearing the melodies. And that first album was probably the first album I received as a gift. And it really stuck with me. And then that turned into getting into reality,
ooh.
which led to pop punk and then multiple other genres throughout time. And I listen to pretty much everything.
Well, I've seen no one has said in sync, really. I think somebody said no, or no, not in sync. Maybe it was the Backstreet Boys, but no one has ever said in sync. And I think they're such an important part of all of us for sure. Whether you like them or not, they were around. So that's really cool.
Yeah, like Justin Timberlake's awesome. Chris Kirkpatrick, he's actually from Clarion, Pennsylvania. So that's not too far from us. I didn't know it at that time, but looking back at it, there was a hometown hero that was a star in that group. Just really cool to kind of look back at. And I think I just really fell in love with that top 40 chorus hook mentality. And I remember being younger and trying to write my own music and trying to model it after a catchy in sync song. I think it was pop. There was a thing called hit clips, and hit clips were literally a 30-second play of a song. You paid like $7 or $10 for it one, and you had to buy the player, and then you bought the actual clips, and I think each little clip individually had like a couple songs on it. It was like 30 seconds each. And I just remember listening to that shit over and over and over. And I think over time, that just kind of got me into understanding what a hook was. Because, of course, that little hit clip was playing the chorus.
Yeah, that's so cool because I think a lot of people may not even admit that, right? Because oh, it was in sync or pop music because they might not want to, but pop music is it's so important. I think a lot of people don't really talk about that.
For sure. Even country music. I grew up
Yeah.
on country and classic rock. For, I would say, for any of the music that I listen to, that's what I grew up on. I didn't grow up on a lot of it. This is more of a discovery for myself. So I didn't have any musicians in the family. I come from a family of somewhat like athletes. So that was kind of my experience where I had to kind of fall into something as a segue to get me into that, what it is music.
Talking about all of that, but you guys are obviously the Pittsburgh area, and I know we were already touching on it. For some reason, this podcast has brought me to Pittsburgh, which is really, really cool. And each person has said their own thing about the scene. For you guys, what is so special about that scene in Pittsburgh for you guys?
Pittsburgh has a pretty good pop punk scene, and I don't want to like shoehorn us into pop punk too hard, but
Hmm.
the pop punk and pop punk adjacent stuff, alternative, even hardcore stuff like that. There just seems to be a lot of listenership in Pittsburgh for that, and there's a pretty rich history of more established bands like Eternal Boy and Punchline came up out of Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and then some of the bands that you're familiar with, like Old Neon,
Mhm.
and I know you've talked to our friend Drew from the Warp Band.
Yes.
They work a little more on the other side of the state, but there is just a lot of community around that style of music, and so we found a place there, which was pretty cool.
It seems like a really cool place because, like, even I think about all the bands we've had and like Dream the Heavy is completely different from Old Neon. And then we had For Those in Question too. So, and I mean, I'm gonna forget one of them, but Foamer too. Trying to think who else, like, who's on my list. Yeah, I think that's all of them. And oh, Heading North, obviously
I think
too.
that's great.
So I mean, we had Mike and Ash on, and that's one thing. And each band too is just so different. It's really cool to see that. It's not just maybe a specific style. And I'm sure music scenes too. Like I'm originally from Chicago area, so they're very pop punk or hardcore and very different too. But I don't know, even just doing this podcast, there's just something special I feel about the bands coming out of Pittsburgh. You guys are one of them too. So
I would
yeah.
say, at least for me, and Ryan can maybe chime in on this too, and Tommy too, as well. But we were in a band together, the three of us, before Midnight Lights, and it's really cool to, like, we'll get on a show or we'll go do something at this venue, and we'll run into somebody that we played a show with, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it's really cool to catch up and keep those connections and see where everyone's at after how many years of playing one show together, and then you keep up and you support each other. And I think that's what makes Pittsburgh music scene very special, at least to me.
Yeah, it seems that way. Even whenever we had, I think it was Old Neon, and then we had For Those in Question, and I had like two of the different bands in my inbox, like, hey, we listened to your podcast with them. We'd love to come on. It just seemed like such a big community, and everyone wants to lift each other up. Like it's so awesome.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with what Alex said there. It's cool. People stick around.
Mhm.
There's a lot of musicians in the scene that have been committed to it for a long time. And so it is cool to cross paths, whether it's in different bands or just you're in the same band and maybe you haven't played together in a few years, and you get together again, and it's just you kind of pick right back up where you left off. Everybody's always checking out each other's new music, and
Mhm.
it always gives you something to talk about, which is cool.
And Amy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go ahead and lead with what they said. Even though I
Yeah.
wasn't a part of the original band, I played in a cover band in high school. And even, some of those individuals, while they're, might not be in the Pittsburgh area anymore, just to like bounce ideas off. And actually, one of my good friends from high school is now the fifth honorary band member of All Time Low. His name is Dan Swank. So we were in the same high school cover band together, and we still keep in touch. And sometimes I'll send them our songs to listen to. And, it's just a tight knit community that goes way back and, stick together. So
Oh, that's so cool. And I mean, Ryan, do you have anything to add to this about the Pittsburgh scene?
The scene is what keeps me going outside of even the band. I actively promote and try to support every venue, any promotion company that's involved in Pittsburgh. I go to shows all the time, and I just think that was a discovery for me. So I'll do whatever I can to give that back to someone else that needs that same exact thing. It's done a lot for me, and I think by playing in a band, you're able to take that a step further and literally be a face in that. That's what we've been really humbled and blessed to have an opportunity to have our name out there on stills and play with some awesome people, not just awesome musicians, awesome people as well.
Well, like I said, it makes me want to go there and like see everybody and get to be a part of that scene. And even talking about Pittsburgh, I know before we officially started, we talked about it, but with Four Chord coming up and you guys playing the kickoff show, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, 408, and obviously you guys, what are you guys most excited about that?
Well, it's a crazy cool opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm sure red jumpsuit means something to all of us. We grew up with that era of pop punk alternative stuff. I remember In Fate's Hands being on one of the Madden video games when I was a kid. And so like I've seen red jumpsuit probably 4 or 5 times now, and I keep going back because I'm such a big fan. Like it's a crazy honor to share the stage with them. I love 408. They're a band that we've kind of modeled our sound after a little bit, and look to as one of the up and coming bands on the national scene, where it's like, yeah, we want to do what those guys are doing. So for both of them, and then the emo band's really cool too. The emo band's definitely like bringing something different to the table, but all three of those bands are really well established and give us a great opportunity for exposure, and they're all bands that I'm personally a fan of, so it's going to be a fun night.
Oh, I can't imagine what that's like to share the stage with that, and even Four Chord itself too. I mean, are you guys, obviously you guys are all going, right, to the actual fest, or no?
I'll be there both days.
Yeah. So who are you guys looking forward to seeing there for yourselves, like as a music fan?
I'm a diehard ADTR fan. They're like one of my all-time favorite bands, huge influence. I wouldn't miss them coming to Pittsburgh, for the world. Like, and them being on that festival is even more perfect.
Oh. Oh yeah, for sure. I can't imagine that. That has to be so cool. But what about you, Alex? Who would you like to go see?
ADTR.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect blend of that, the melodic, pop hook chorus, and then they just throw in a breakdown too. Like 30 seconds later,
Oh.
it's everything I need.
And I've seen the videos of like their latest tour. Like I've kind of like on TikTok. I'm like, oh, let me see. And I mean, they just sound as better now than they did back then, which is wild to think about. I'm like, oh man, I got, like I said, either Four Chord or somehow just justify the money that it is to go see them play at these stadiums they're going to play with 4 Year Strong, and obviously the story so far. But oh yeah, for sure. And what about you, Ryan?
Me, the first day, it's a band called Koyo. They're
Yes, I love them.
more in the bill. I dig them a lot. So there's a band back in the day. I don't know if you remember them or not. They're called Trust Company. Do you remember that band?
Yes.
They had a song called Downfall. So every time I listen to them, I'm like, dude, this is like, it sounds like the dude's whispering, kind of like the guy from Trust Company, like one of those vocals. And I just connected with that sound because I never heard a band that was able to pull off that vibe while doing like pop punk adjacent music. So I'm stoked to see them on the first day. Second day, two bands I've never seen, All American Rejects, something.
Oh, yeah. Those would all be I love Koyo so much. And admittedly, I've tried to get them on the podcast because I'm like, I would love to hear like from them and their experiences. I was left on red, but I'm like, I'm not going to take it personally. Like, look, I understand, but I love them nonetheless. And I think what they're doing right now is really cool.
Yeah, they're rad. They're hardcore guys. Seen a couple of their hardcore bands come serving to spot in Pittsburgh. And I actually got to talk to a couple of those guys. And of course, that's where the Trust Company comparison. They're like, yeah, dude, we hear it. We never heard that. But yeah, I mean,
that's so
they're
cool.
kind of taken back by it. They're kind of taken back by it. They're like, yeah, now you say it, we hear it. But end the conversation. But it was cool.
Oh, that's awesome. And like, what about you, Amy? Like, who is on your list to see at Four Chord?
Oh man, well, I will say I'm one of the only bands. So I am going the second day of Four Chord, and I've never seen All American Rejects. So I'm really excited for that. Of course, I've seen Taylor Acorn. I'm really excited to see her again. Obviously, Old Neon.
Yeah.
Just I've seen a lot of the bands that are, headlining before, and I'm just super excited to see them all again. So
yeah, it's such a stacked lineup too. Like even like something corporate. Like I just think there's so many. It's one of those ones where if you were going to justify, I guess, to go, and plus to see these smaller bands too, like you guys on the kick off show, and then even bands like Old Neon, like someone else that's a smaller band. I think that's really cool. And even getting to talk to Goalkeeper about it as well. They think the same thing. They love that festival. And I think that's really cool. And even talking about bands now, you guys have shared the stage with Action Adventure, which are like from my hometown, Chicago. Love them so much. Youth Fountain, another one of my favorites. What was that like for you guys?
It was a really cool experience. We had great interactions with everybody that was a part of that show. Crew, artists, audience. I think we fit the sound really well. It was just good hangs. They were all really cool guys, and everybody was just kind of enjoying I guess the slightly different takes on a similar shared style of music.
Does anyone else have anything to add about it? I feel bad. I'm like, oh, I want to get everyone's opinions, but
No, it was rad. It's a good time. Action Adventure had a great set.
mhm.
The band that played before Action Adventure, does anybody remember what they were called? I like them too. They had a
Carpool.
Oh yes,
cool sound. Yeah,
carpool.
cool.
Yeah,
They had
carpool
like
was
a
on that
90s
too.
alternative influence to their music. That was cool, kind of like a Third Eye Blind-esque guitar that what I remember hearing. So I dug the whole show. It was fun. I think we kicked ass. I think other bands kicked ass, and Craft House is a cool venue to play. If you're in a band, you're listening right now, and you're trying to get the Pittsburgh scene, hit up Trusky Entertainment and let them know what you do. And if it matches, get a show at Craft House. I mean, it's a cool spot. It's a bowling alley right next door. You get some good grub beforehand, and it's just an all around great time.
Oh, that reminds me of there's Asbury Lanes here, and they have like their little diner in the background and everything. So that's really cool. So Craft House, anyone again listening, maybe I'll link it or something below because that sounds really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely recommend for anybody to check it out. It's a cool experience, and not only is it just a concert, but you are getting a chance to go bowl before, have dinner, kind of hang out, lounge out with your friends.
I mean, even talking about your music too, for anyone listening too that maybe is unfamiliar with you guys, you have another breakup song has been out for a while. I've enjoyed it. For you guys, what has been the response on your end so far with that? I know it was about, I think it was May 17th or sometime in May it came out.
Well, firstly, thank you. But we've had a lot of really positive reception to it. It's the first single off of our upcoming album, and it was really our first opportunity to showcase where Midnight Lights is at right now, kind of what we've been working on over the last couple years. We put out some singles previously that were written over maybe a longer period of time and kind of a hodgepodge of old ideas getting brought to the table. And another breakup song was like our first chance to like this lineup put together kind of our best effort and put it out there, for everybody to check out and hopefully enjoy. And it seems like people have been enjoying it. It definitely shot up the list on Spotify pretty quickly. And, I've been really humbled by the reception that it's gotten so far.
So great. And I that's one of the things too. And I think it's one of those things, much like a lot of the Pittsburgh bands. I really don't think with your sound, I was trying to like, what do they sound like? What do they remind me of? I don't think you can really put you guys in a box, which is really cool as a listener or even in a band to listen to because like I don't it just is a different sound in such a great way. But I'm like, for you guys, what are those influences if that you guys would like to others or other listeners to know?
At least for me, I know all four of us have a wild array of different influences. I know as far as drumming, my favorite band of all time and number one influence has been Rush, at least as far as like this sort of um 90s 2000s pop punk sound. Big Sum 41 fan, big Enema of the State era Blink fan. I mean all Blink, but
Mhm.
Newfound Glory. I'll let the others pick the bands, but
Mhm.
at least in that genre we're all similar, I think.
Yes.
And I feel like you kind of always hear the same names with pop punk
Hmm.
because you got legends like Simple Plan and Some and NFG and
Yeah.
but I get into a lot of newer pop punk. I guess newer maybe isn't the right term
Yeah.
anymore. But like Neck Deep and State Champs and sort of
Hmm.
that second generation or the resurgence of pop punk, Real Friends, Knuckle Puck.
Yeah.
So I try to take some influence from that stuff, but I really stay on top of my release radar and stuff like that. So anything new that's coming out, I'm trying to take it in and just see, what different things are happening out there in the music world and try and learn from those techniques and styles and all that.
Yeah, that's really awesome because I know a lot of times too, I know pop punk is what like obviously I'm a huge Newfound Glory fan. I love them so much and they're like one of the top, obviously Blink. But this, I guess, newer, like you said, Tommy, it's weird to say newer because when I think of State Champs, how long they've been around, but they are that newer esque. But there's a lot just coming out right now that's really cool and continuing. I know Real Friends has new stuff coming out, and it just is cool to see this generation of the younger fans growing up on like our Newfound Glory or our Blink. I mean, they still probably love Blink, but that's really cool to see. And what about you, Amy?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that too. I think like also like a lot of our songs incorporate like those breakdowns that kind of remind you of bands like A Day to Remember. And I know for myself, like Mayday Parade and Something Corporate have a pretty big influence. I've been kind of working on some starters. I know I haven't been a front person in our songwriting lately, but when I'm kicking around my own ideas, incorporating piano and synth and things like that, I think of those bands come to mind. Obviously Blink and some too. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, did any of you guys catch Sum 41 on that tour? I don't know if they're still on it. I know they came by here and I missed it, but they're like their final goodbye tour at all?
They're coming in September
Oh,
to Pittsburgh.
okay. So
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
Yeah, September.
yeah.
Tom's
Oh,
birthday, I believe, actually.
Yeah, they're going to be here on my birthday.
oh, so there you go. That's
So,
awesome. Like, yeah, I
no
know.
problem.
Oh, and they're another band. They sound still good. So good as they did back then, which is again wild to think about. And I think it just says a lot about that genre and those bands for sure. And Ryan, what about you? Would you say for influences?
For me, it's Cartel
Mm,
and Boys Like Girls, Reality
yes.
K, Knuckle Puck, Hit the Lights.
Nobody mentions Cartel. A lot of people don't mention Cartel enough. So that's really cool to hear Cartel. Usually when I talk about Cartel, people are like, "Who?" I'm like, "How can God, they're great. They're legends." I mean, like one of the best records of all time.
Yeah, yeah, Chroma is one of the best albums of all time,
Hmm.
hands down.
Yes. So all right, we're good. We're on the same page. Finally, someone to agree with me there. But and as being a younger band too, and being out there, social media, even we see it with the podcast, you have to promote, you have to be on social media. They almost want you to be the social media manager these days and make a 30-second clip and pull someone in. For you guys, how is that a struggle in your journey as a band?
Definitely something we've had to learn to adapt to. I guess not to show our age too much, but like when we all started playing music, that wasn't really a part of it at all.
Hmm.
People were still looking at the inserts on CDs and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, as we've, especially with this project, like Midnight Lights in its current form has really only been together for about 2 years. So it's really about trying to get your material in front of the most people that can enjoy it. And I'm not somebody that loves like just cranking out content for the sake of putting it out there, the likes or the clicks or whatever. But if that gives us an opportunity to share the stuff that we've poured our heart and soul into with people that might relate or that might just enjoy it, then it's a fair trade.
Yeah, like it's even with us, sometimes we'll make the silliest, I think it was A Day to Remember. It was the silliest TikTok I made and it got like 7,000 views, all these hundreds of likes. But I'm like, well, did anybody come to the podcast? Like, did anybody want to check out my podcast? No, but it was cool to have that interaction and maybe, down the road. But it was like a 2-second thing and then something you work on, for a little bit where you're like, oh, this is gonna be really great. And it gets nothing. So so I can't imagine from a band perspective, because on me, that's been even a struggle of mine.
I feel like if even one person streams
Mhm.
the song and likes it, it's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
that's enough for me.
It almost makes it worth it, even though it is like it's just a weird TikTok time. A bit, I mean, even to date myself, like MySpace was, a lot of that too back in the day. Like, but it was different though. But I don't know. It's weird. I have a love hate with TikTok. But Alex, do you have anything to add over that?
At least for me personally, like my thoughts on like pushing content out. My feelings are like, I don't know when it bridges the gap between like informative and getting the word out there and then just being downright annoying.
Hmm.
Because I certainly have that when I'm scrolling through Instagram and, you see the same ad, 5 times. You're like, all right, I'm done with like, I can't, if I
Yeah.
see that anymore, I'm going to lose it, navigating those tricky waters, I guess, finding the fine line between, reaching as many people as possible and then just being annoying. I think that's important that we have to find.
Yeah. Yeah. even me, like hearing that, I'm like, yep, that's because I never want to be that annoying person. But then I'm like, oh, sometimes those like reels or like TikToks are the ones people like, but I don't know. Who knows? But what about you, Amy?
Yeah, I will say, I mean, it's definitely been a journey. We all kind of talked about how, we want to write songs, we play a lot of gigs, and we all work full time too. So, like,
Mhm.
being a social media, like having that content, I'll have to give a shout out to, like Tommy and Brewer do a lot of like the content creation, like making graphics for upcoming shows and songs, and also just like making sure that content gets scheduled to go out. So, yeah, I just really think that people don't really think about it, but it's like another job almost, a component to it. So, I think that it is good though to have that consistent content. I know that we try to post something out, once a day, every other day at most, but I think it helps us in the sense that we have all of our friends and family and now other like fellow Pittsburgh musicians to where like they're like, well, where are you playing next? Like, what's the next thing? And like it's out there and it's consistent. So I think that we're getting to a good place there.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, a lot of people forget too at the end of the day. I mean, I have a full time, you guys have a full time, and you're trying to do your passion, but then it's like you're being pulled. And then I know the band Roderick was bringing up their biggest challenge is charging fans up because you have to survive as a band, and whether it's a show or a shirt, merch, and that plays a role. And I'm like, I guess I didn't think about that. Like, I just think okay, I go to a show, I buy a shirt, but then that puts pressure on the band itself. So I think the main support of a young band is, anyone listening, I would say like go see people, like, share their stuff for sure. A share goes such a long way and just support these young bands because it's so important. And what about you, Ryan? Do you have anything to add?
The last one. So they're going to pretty much cover it all. I'd say just all the above. Content creation is key. I'm 28. I definitely am not in tune with these kids listening to TX2
Mhm.
and Scene Queen,
Yeah.
right? Like that stuff I just don't understand, but it's cool that I don't understand it. It just means I'm getting older.
Hmm.
And I think watching some of those heavy hitters in the TikTok generation that's adjacent to pop punk, pop rock, you learn a lot. And I think just modeling, not copying, but taking inspiration from what they do, you do similar things. Sometimes ridiculous, sometimes it's redundant, but I think it gets the point across. And it's cool because I don't know if this got brought up yet. A lot of people listen to our tunes, they are more apt with the drive-through records era style. So it's a little bit more relatable, even though that's a different generation than us
Hmm.
almost.
Yeah.
So, you have these people who were jamming Say It Like You Mean It starting line, but we grew up on Homesick ADTR, and it's just kind of funny how that kind of panned out. I think kind of our content creation are those parents of those kids that are listening to TX2 or Scene Queen.
Hmm.
And I think we're in a different boat, but I mean all across the board, social media consistency is key. And whether it's a show or promoting or a single or whatever, I think we just got to be mindful of what the trends are. And hate saying it, the algorithms, right?
Hmm.
It's a whole mathematics side to it. So we'll crack the code, right? Right, guys?
The
Yeah.
almighty algorithm.
Oh, yeah, and I know I heard recently Instagram even wants to think about, like,
uh,
the different ads or something where, like, you'll have to wait a little bit or something like that, kinda like YouTube, where it takes, like, a little, like, maybe 30 seconds, or it's, like, something you have to wait for the video, but I guess eventually Instagram's talking about we're allowing, like, these breaks or something where you'd have I'm like, "Oh gosh, we don't need that for the algorithm, there's enough of the algorithm there." So I hope that's not true and that doesn't happen, but, yeah, that
It'll turn into
algorithm.
Hulu.
Right,
5 ads and then 2 minutes of Family Guy.
right. Oh, yeah, just to see your favorite profiles you follow too. It's crazy, but part of our podcast obviously is music and mental health and how they play a role. I would love to know for you guys, how has music aided your mental health, whether it was a difficult time, your own mental health journey, whatever you feel like sharing for yourself too, right? And comfortable. But how has music been there for you guys when maybe other things weren't there?
Yeah, I mean, it's had an immensely positive impact on my life. It certainly gives me an outlet to sort of work through and then share experiences, good experiences, bad
Mhm.
experiences. In either case, it's always felt fulfilling and rewarding to me to be able to share those experiences and hear feedback from other people. And in the same way that I relate to the music that I like, and some of it's good and some of it's bad. And some of my favorite lyricists are incredibly raw, and share, all those experiences very plainly. We were talking about Youth Fountain earlier,
Mhm.
and Youth Fountain's a great example of some pretty raw lyrics. I probably lean a little more in the like metalcore direction than most of the rest of the band, but I listen to a lot of like Bring Me the Horizon and
Mhm.
Beartooth, and Caleb and Ollie in those bands are both great lyricists and people that are really wearing their heart on their sleeve.
Yeah, I love that new Bring Me record. I think it's so great. I know a
Wow.
lot of people are on the fence, but I think it's just so
I love
great.
it.
And
That's
I
fantastic.
think, oh, so good. So yeah, no, I again, like the first, you think you guys are the first people to like bring them up. I'm like, they're so great. They're so massive. And I saw them last summer on the Fall Out Boy tour, which was a weird mix to have them together, but it just brought me where I was way in the back, but just that presence of Ollie, I was like, this is why I came here for this ticket and justified spending the crazy money it was, even to be far in the back, because that presence alone is just so amazing. And I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
and what about you, Alex?
Sort of, I'll build off what Tommy said. It's a nice outlet. If you're happy, you're sad, you're frustrated. I try to channel that into a song. You know, writing lyrics, not something I'm necessarily the best at, but I feel like it gives me an out. Sort of like a let me sort of express myself, and then I can go to sleep soundly at night, knowing that I did something to try and channel that frustration or whatever it may have you. Maybe it's excitement, and then you know, kind of bring myself down to a level headedness, I guess.
I think, yeah, music is that universal language too. And I think so many people, when you go see a show or listen to a song, you can think, well, I feel this way about it. But then, like, your friend can feel a different thing. So I think that's what's so unique. And I guess, are there any other specific artists for you personally that have helped you out?
I know Bring Me the honestly the latest Bring Me the Horizon record.
Hmm.
Listening to some of those, like I'm sure it was good for Ollie to get some of those feelings out. Also, I mean, the new Avenged Sevenfold record too, like not necessarily in the grounds of traditional mental health, I guess, but I know they're doing something that you want to do that is going to make you happy and like satisfy the persons in your group. I think I look to that as an inspiration. Like they're going to do this whether anyone likes it or not, and they don't care. And I admire sort of that aspect of it's good for your mental health to just do the things you want to do.
Oh, I love that. And what about you, Amy?
So as you all were talking, and I'm thinking about, not trying to be super redundant, just really you find yourself in different seasons of life. And the earliest memories that I remember are when I was a preteen, my grandpa passed away and we were really close. And two of the songs that really like got me through that time period were Hear You Me by Jimmy Eat World
Oh my gosh, I
and Your
love.
Guardian Angel, like red jumpsuit, and we get to open up for them in less than 2 weeks. Like what? So just like music is a constant because the people and the situations you're in your life are always changing. They ebb and flow, they come and go for whatever reason. And music is that one consistent element that you can always rely on, that's always going to be there for you. So I think that's what really draws me to, playing, listening, supporting the whole 9 yards.
Oh, I love that you brought up Jimmy Eat World and that song. That one specifically for me, when my stepdad passed away, "Hear You Me" was one of those ones. It still hits every time I see them. I love Jimmy Eat World so
Yep,
much.
have seen
So
the singles.
yes. far as in talking about mental health, where and I know affordability is one of those things. One of the things we like to ask people too is where would you like to see it go? Whether it was, you can say affordability because that's an accessibility. But for you guys, whether it's someone you know, yourselves, or just in general, where would you like to see mental health awareness go?
Yeah, I would hope that platforms like this and others that are out there that are giving some attention to mental health awareness. I would hope that everybody can find something that is an outlet, like we have all said that music is for us. Music might not be your thing. There might be
Hmm.
something else that you can kind of pour yourself into. But I know I have a lot of hobbies. Like music is just one of the things that kind of keeps that balance for me. And so it takes a lot of different activities for me personally. But I think as long as you can be intentional about that and talk about it and get these kind of ideas out there, hopefully that'll kind of shed some light for some people that maybe haven't found that thing yet.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something we're gonna ask too. I wanted to ask anyways, but you kind of are already talking about it, Tommy, is what else besides music do you use? Because that's something we like to ask too. Maybe music isn't your thing, right? When you're going through anything mental health related, what do you turn to?
I'll jump in on this one too.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate to have a great social support system. I've got the band and they're some of my best friends, and I have friends that aren't in the band. I have a wonderful girlfriend. I have great family support, and I know that not everyone has that kind of network, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would hope that if you are somebody that feels like maybe you don't have that, this kind of platform gives you a way to connect with other people. And for us, we've met a lot of people through music. You asked about some of the other activities. I like to work out a lot, so
Hmm.
I have a great network of people at my gym. Amy has dragged me into running numerous races recently, which wasn't always my bag, but I'm kind of meeting people that way too. So those are just a few, I guess, examples for me.
Yeah.
I'm sure the others have some equally
Yeah.
good, if not better ones.
Working out is
Uh,
so underrated, and I know a lot of people talk about working out and maybe, oh, maybe someone's trying to push it on you, but it truly does. That's a big thing in my routine is going to the gym or even just taking a walk. A lot of people like think exercising is either running or maybe something, oh, I got to go take a class. No, you could just get some kind of movement and that truly can change so much. So, I know me when I'm not working out or if I have to skip a couple days, I feel a certain way. So I think that speaks to that. And I mean, for you, Alex, where I guess we'll just kind of ask both of them to everybody. For you, mental health awareness, where would you like to see it go? And what do you use for your own mental health to help you besides music?
I think the most important message out there is, you know, you don't have to do what you're struggling with alone.
Hmm.
I think that message it's spread a lot in the years going forward, but I think that's something even I have tended to struggle with. And if if something's really weighing on me, like I do have a great, like Tommy said, I have a good support system. Bands or this band, some of my best friends. I have a lot of great friends outside of this band. Have a girlfriend. I have just all these outsources that can kind of help me if I'm feeling down. So
Yeah, the support system is so huge. And I think, again, maybe some people don't think about it, but even if you're going through it, just talking to somebody, whether it's your friend or your spouse or girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever it is, it always helps just to have that support system. So I'm glad you guys seem to have that. That's so important. And what about you, Amy?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and piggyback off of what they said. I do think that that's really, really important is just to have a support system and to not be afraid to speak up. I think we're really fortunate that we kind of are the first generation that has made mental health or is trying to make mental health just as important as physical health. Whereas, say, our parents' generation, really, it was more of like a fake illness or an
Yeah.
embarrassment, so to speak. So just the fact that, you know, we're more open to talking about it. And the more that we talk about it, the more other people feel comfortable enough to come forward. Or even I'll take it a step further than friends and family. Like talking to a therapist has really helped me over the last several years. And I'm really fortunate, if you have insurance, usually there are some affordable options there just to like throw things out. Even if you're, having a great time and great life, sometimes you just need that unbiased person to just like take in all of your what's going on in your head, helping you sort those things out. So that's definitely an option that I think is really important to kind of spread the message there.
Yeah, no, I know. Therapy still, I'm waiting for the day that it's just as normal as, hey, I'm going to go to Target or something. I'm going to my therapist, and just have that it's okay to go do that. And again, having an unbiased opinion is so important. I know me for my therapy too. I go to it too, and it's really important to do that, especially if you feel that you need to go do that. And what about you, Ryan? If you're there, I don't know if you're
Hey,
there.
sorry,
I know,
sorry. Yeah, I was disconnected there for a second. No,
don't worry. I just
no, yeah, I know. So I would say for me, recently I've just experienced sort of like this drawback to where you're at 28, like I said before, and you're like, oh man, like what's going on? Am I being productive? So for me, from a young age, I've always just felt like I need to be productive in everything I do. And I think with that can cause a lot of stress and going to, the mental health segment of it is, you can feel really just taken back by a lot of things that aren't your fault, right? If you're having an off day, that's okay. And 5, 6 years ago, I used for the outlet of music to answer your first question. I believe that's what it was.
yeah.
I was just going to shows and, actively going to shows and participating and kind of coming full circle with understanding what a scene is and just really coming to terms of what that means. So I feel like that was, that's still my like getaway, right? Like I can go to a show tonight after a busy day at work or whatever's on my mind, whatever. I mean, as far as mental health goes, man, that stuff's a real hardcore subject. And, I can say from my experience, even recently, like it's something that, I have struggled with, and it's something to where, I've experienced things that can be, really overwhelming. And I've been really thankful to have a great support system, like everybody said in the chat here. Like I've been really fortunate to have some awesome friends to be able to reach out to, parents that grew up in a generation that didn't really take that seriously, like what Amy was saying. They have a respect and they want to learn more about, kind of what's going on in my head and, seeking out professional help and stuff like that. So coming from that experience, man, I hope everybody's able to get a chance to get help. They need help, and to reach out. They need help.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you and Amy touched on too, because I think not throwing any parents under the bus, but it is so true, like what they were told. And I think I do love that our generation, even the ones below us too, they're really taking that account to be like, even if you look at TikTok, there's people talking about ADHD or what OCD is and what it really is. And it's really cool to see that this younger generation and then us included, like I know I'm in my mid 30s. I don't care. I'll say it. But like I'm in my mid 30s and able to say that I'm glad to see it. And a lot of us are recognizing that stuff. So it's really great. And you guys are part of that conversation, which is so awesome. So it's cool to have you guys on there and a part of that. And even too, like something I saw the other day, you guys posted about your band. We'll get back to your band a little bit. And I appreciate all you guys shared. But on June 21st, which is wild to think about, that's right around the corner, we have Light the Fuse coming out. What are you guys looking forward to about that single dropping?
Well, the highlight of that song, that's the first one Amy's singing lead on. So,
Oh, awesome.
spoiler alert to the
Yes.
general public. No, it's a really cool song. We've been sitting on that one for a while. That was probably one of the first finished songs of the new record. And that's it's just a fun song. It kind of has a little bit of everything that makes Midnight Lights Midnight Lights. It's got double lead vocals, Amy and Ryan both doing their thing. It's got a really cool kind of drum break. Alex gets to show off a little bit, and then I kind of come in at the end with a guitar solo, and so we all get to, get a piece of the pie, so to speak.
Yeah, even the little snippet I heard, I'm like, oh, I can't wait. This sounds really, really good and cool. So I'm looking forward to it. And to like for you guys too. So that's a single, but you have a record coming out on July 26th, which again is crazy to think that's around the corner. What I know it's not right now, but maybe you can't talk about everything of it. But what are you most proud of so far?
I'll just say for me, I think this material is obviously some of the best we've ever done. I know I say obviously because everyone says that, but I truly mean it. There's a song on there that's really personal to me. Something I won't really go into on this, but it was a very personal subject. It felt really good to get it out. And I know hearing it done for the first time, it was an emotional time for me, and I'm excited for people to sort of hear that project, hear how it sounded. And I know everyone else probably feels that way about probably one song or another on this record. So I think that's what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. Can't wait to hear it. Like that's again, it's really cool. I think it's awesome that we have you guys so early on so we get so excited about this coming out. And what about you, Amy?
So I'll say one thing that stands out to me is this is the first time, I don't know if it's the first time for everybody, but like getting to work on a full length album is not for the faint of heart. We have spent many, many, many hours in the studio. So to know that they're all finished and refined, and we even, would go back and listen to them again and think of little tweaks and changes we wanted to make. So just to get that cohesive sound out, because I think all the songs fit really well together. There are a few outliers that are like just different from the rest, but it all really works together. So just seeing our hard work over the past few years come to fruition, I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, I think so many of us don't realize, like, as the listener, you listen to the record, and to us, it's like, oh, we've been waiting for it to come out, or we want it to come out, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I think I'm glad you brought that up, Amy, because I think so many people forget that, like all the work that goes into that on top of, like you guys said, you guys all have jobs on top of this, and you're creating this. So, and what about you, Ryan?
Working with a producer like Matt Berry, the dude who did everything on the album. He's awesome. Very tight recordings. Matt Berry. He comes from a different background to not really doing pop punk bands, but dude, he hit the hammer on the nail. And now pop punk bands are reaching out to him, and he's able to use his pop punk production skills. He's worked with other bands similar to ours, but I think we went at the studio, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but he's like, yeah, he's like pop punk, man. He's like, it's got to be like literally perfect. He's like, your vocals, Ryan, like they got to be like perfect. You got to make it perfect. Like, it's got to sound like, and it's like, it's pop. Like pop is in the title of a pop punk genre name. So I think going in there, giving him a clear image, he really was able to translate and put the imagery together to what we wanted. And he did a great job. And as far as I'm concerned, we'll be working with him years to come. And it's just really cool to kind of establish that relationship with the producer as, I guess, like the fifth member of the band in a way, when you look at the concept of the album.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have talked about that. And when they talk about working on a record, building that relationship with their producer and how important that is. So I'm glad you touched on that because I think a lot of people have a similar experience, or maybe if it doesn't go well, if they don't mesh well. So I'm really happy that it was a positive experience. And what about for you, Tommy? What are you most proud of?
I just think this is the most complete version of our sound. And, like I mentioned earlier in the interview, some of the previous singles were thrown together over, different writing sessions or over even different lineups while we were kind of forming the band and finding our identity. And this album is really our first chance to put out there something that was a collaborative effort that was all very intentional, and it's kind of us saying like, hey, this is Midnight Lights and this is what Midnight Lights is about.
Oh, well, again, I can't wait to hear it. I'm looking forward to it. And I know I kept you guys a little longer because we had to stop later. So again, I apologize for that. But for you guys, if someone's listening, I'm going to post all the links so everybody can find Midnight Lights and go check you out and get ready for this record and the single on the 21st of June. Where can people find you guys?
All our socials are at Midnight Lights PA, frequently confused for Midnight Lights Spa, but you type it in either way, it'll get you there. And we're on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube Music, the list goes on, all your favorite platforms. So Midnight Lights or Midnight Lights PA.
Awesome. Well, I know I'm going to try and push this out ahead of time too. So it'll be kind of be out before this new single drops. So maybe it'll push some people your way. But I thank you guys all like seriously for coming on here and being patient with Zoom and their technical difficulties and all that. I appreciate you guys taking the time today and coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for
Thanks.
having us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Class.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like this was really great. So I know now I'm just gonna have to get to Four Chord and hang out and go see you guys. That's what I'm gonna have to do. Like this.
Yeah, of course.
appreciate
You're a
it.
killer host.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. I
You
like
just directed 4 separate conversations at once. That
Well,
was awesome.
man. And like usually I have my co-host here, she was sick today and she literally was like, I'm sick. I'm like, okay. And then the Zoom thing happened and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just not what you want to have happen. But you guys were great and I appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to putting this one out. I know I'm gonna push it out. We'll get it out. But you guys have a great rest of your day and thank you so much. I know we'll talk soon. And all right, guys, that was my conversation with Midnight Lights. Again, I cannot thank Ryan, Amy, Alex, and Tommy for their patience with the recording process. I know we took a little longer than I wanted to or anticipated, but I truly appreciate them so much. And they're just wonderful people making wonderful music. And I really can't wait to see where this band goes. If you have not heard of them, check them out. All the links are below. Go check them out because I think they're definitely a band to watch. And from what I've seen in their performances, they've definitely had that stage presence. So can't thank them enough for everything. As for Justine and I, we will be back next week. We will have a wonderful conversation with someone you probably have seen on your Instagram feed a little bit. So we're really excited about this conversation. But as always, guys, thanks so much for your support and listening to the show week in and week out. And I hope you're enjoying all the new music that is coming out, whether it's the new story so far, the latest from Costin, like the Fuse from Midnight Lights. I mean, you name it. There are a lot of really good releases that happen. So let me know if we're missing any or any bands you want to see. All right. Bye, guys.